Good morning. No, good afternoon. That's right. Unless you're in Hawaii, in which case it is good morning. And the sound of the bell means it's time for Satsang. It's time for our ongoing communion with truth. And those of you who might be joining me here for the first time, when I say communion with truth, I'm not talking about me, right? I'm not talking about the guy at the front of the room who is going on and on and on about stuff. I'm talking about the truth of you. That's what satsang is. It is the truth of you. It's the truth of your being. In Sanskrit, the word sat means both truth and being, existence. So what we're talking about here is your truth. At best, I'm a facilitator. I'm a signpost, right? This way, this way. At best, that's all I can do. The beauty of genuine spirituality, and the thing that really distinguishes it from religion as a practice, right, is that it's all about your own self-discovery of the truth of you. It's a place you go alone. Nobody can really go there with you. Right? It's one of the most amazing things that it becomes the ultimate inner journey, and it's simply you. Everything is gone except you. And wouldn't that make sense? If you're talking about pure being, pure existence, pure anything, right? It means it is completely untouched by anything unlike itself. So that doesn't mean like, purity as in obeying a particular religious or spiritual practice. It means that you are purely yourself, you and nothing but you. And the process of purification, you might say, is simply removing everything from you that isn't you. Right? Good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't really matter, right? Anything that isn't original equipment, right? No aftermarket stuff. Which is why, and it's confusing to many people, the genuine spiritual practice and non-dual inquiry is all about removing what you're not. The whole neti, right? Neither this, nor that, nor both, nor neither. You're simply removing everything that isn't you. Until you're left with the pure, unmixed, original innocence. The vision of that original innocence when I was 19 years old was what began this whole thing for me. I saw it as clearly as the nose. It overwhelmed me, and ever since then, I can't look at anybody without seeing it. Sometimes very slightly, and sometimes because it isn't very predominant in someone, and sometimes my vision just gets cleared with conditioning and thoughts and that sort of stuff. But I intuitively know it's always there, and that original innocence is the pure you. The you that was there before all the conditioning took place, before your childhood traumas or any past lives. The original, unmixed you. And the reason it seems so difficult to discover is simply because when you're discovering what you are with unmixed with anything else, you can't refer to anything else. You can only refer to yourself. Because any reference to something else brings something else into the picture. Now it's a secondary discovery, it's a secondary description. It's hearsay, right? It's how others might see you. It's how you've been taught to think about yourself. So the essence of non-dual inquiry is how to know yourself with no references but yourself. Now the mind can't go there, can it? Right? The mind cannot know something without being able to describe it in terms of something else, right? Tall, short, night, day. It needs the contrast. It can't know anything directly in and of itself without any reference to something else. This is the wonder of it. This is why it is such a wholesale different way of spiritual inquiry and investigation. It's a whole different way of living. It's a whole different way of thinking. It's a whole different way of everything. How do you describe something that has no opposite? One without a second. Not one as a number and another one over there, but one all by itself. Well, what I point to in all the meditations I do, and really everything I try to teach and say, I point to your direct knowledge of yourself, the simple sense of your own being, which you know without comparing it. You don't need a reference point, right? To know that you are, and to know that you are. You don't need a bunch of people in white lab coats, checking things off. Yep, you are. You don't need any kind of external confirmation or validation. Right? You simply know. You could call it just an intuitive knowing. Right? And that knowing doesn't need any other reference point, does it? Now, to the mind, this is like, yeah, well, so what? I've got it, and it's going to have this long list of things that it needs to accomplish in order to I don't do whatever the objectives are. But this is an existential inquiry. This isn't about how do I manifest a new house or how all that. That's fine. All of that's fine. But that's not this, right? I yes, manifest a new house, but who are you? What is it that's really happening here? How do I know myself? For the mind, it looks like a huge void. Like there's nothing here. There's what? What? Come on, give me something. Right? There's nothing here but you. That's the whole point. There is nothing here except you. Because obviously you're here, aren't you? No matter how much we take away, you're still here. Right? You're watching everything be taken away. That you is you. That's the real you. The pure, untouched, originally innocent you. And it's never been touched. It has never been touched. If you separate the water, take a polluted stream, and you separate, through some process, you separate out all the pollutants, and you're left with that pure water. Have you purified the water? Or is it the same pure water it was in the beginning, just not mixed up with anything anymore? So now the vision is clear. You're seeing the water as it is, and as it's always been. That's your original purity, your original innocence. So we're not actually purifying yourself. We're purifying the mind in a sense. We are coming to see ourselves. What happened? My battery went low. We're coming to see ourselves. I have to change cameras here. I'm really surprised. They were full. We're coming to see ourselves as we are. So you're not purifying yourself, really. You're purifying your sense of yourself. You don't need to purify the water. You need to purify the environment so the pure water can be seen. So, on that note, see, you're all still with me, so you didn't mind me going off about that. Um, equipment. Yeah, the camera. I'd actually thought I've ordered new batteries for the camera, a new microphone. It's coming on Wednesday, so next song I don't have to worry about that. Thanks to your generous donations, and uh, and also I happened to discover that I had some American Express bonus points. I managed to replace the microphone and a few other things that I was desperately in need of. Enough of that. Welcome everyone to Satsang today. It is marvelous to be here with you all outside. Hoping I can keep this outside up stuff going on for a while. I don't know, although I'm very high up in the mountains, so fall comes earlier here than it does in many places. So we'll be eventually having to search for a new location, but the search is in progress, and I should be definitive pretty soon. So let me just say hello to everybody. Rosario, good to see you, my friend. In Spain, John in Ireland, Robert in Nevada, Marcel, hello Marcel in Germany. So good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Penny, hello Penny. I think you're in British Columbia, right? BC in Canada. Ava in Poland. Eugene and friends, love from Poland. Jesse, hello Jesse. Oh no, it's not Jesse, it's Heather, right? Who steals Jesse's account every week to hang out here. Really enjoying your meditation and satsang YouTube library, G. You're very great. I enjoy making them. This is so much fun for me. Sneziola, Snezalea in Serbia. Welcome, my friend. Brian in Virginia. Yay! My goodness, Brian. Brian, you'll be pleased to know, as we first met like 10 years ago or something like that, when I was doing the radio show Conversations with G. Well, I'm starting a new one. I'll be telling you all about it on Om Times Radio coming up on October. We're going to launch on October 6th, a month from now. And I've got a new host. Those of you who remember Bethany, who really helped keep the rhythm of the show going, and it was just kind of a nice offsetting energy. I found another on-air producer who I think is as good and has the same kind of bubbliness and curiosity. So that's happening. Love the kid talking in the background about playing hide and seek. Yeah, that is one of the beauties of the park, isn't it? Families come out here and people run around, and occasionally I'll see some lovers making out in the grass, forgetting that they're in public. It's pretty funny. Anyway, good to see you, Brian. Crispin, hi there, buddy. You're in. Thanks for your clear and honest words. You're very welcome, Crispin in Switzerland. God, what a beautiful place Switzerland is. Russell in South Africa. Welcome. Sue, also in South Africa. Looking forward to satsang all day. So have I, Sue. So have I. Georgia B. Hello to G and the gang. Hello, Georgia. Alessandra, good to see you. We got to catch up. We have this, little project going. We have to catch up. See how that's going. If that's still going to work for you. Roberto in Spain. Hello, Roberto. Anne. Hello, Anne. Good to be here. I've listened to Muji and Isness. Love this state. Brings me peace. Yes. Yeah, it more than brings you peace. It reveals you as peace. As I was saying in the beginning, about removing everything that isn't you, and what's left is nothing but you, well, that's peace. Just you. That's also happiness, contentment. Not, in Sanskrit, they have a beautiful word, two different words for happiness. One, which is sukha, refers to the happiness, the permanent state of being, contentment. And the other is preya, which refers to the fluctuating happiness. In English, we only have one word, right? Right? And most of the time we say happiness, we're talking about, the emotional high, which is wonderful. Everybody likes it, right? But the happiness that is Satchit Ananda, the bliss that Ananda is the happiness that is just a deep contentment. And so when you remove everything that isn't you, what's left? Peace, Ananda, contentment. So that's what Muji's invitation, which if anybody here has not done that, it's easy. Muji invitation, do it. I remember the first time it happened. I wasn't there live. I was listening to a live satsang, and I knew it was something really special that it just happened. And it is the process, which I have borrowed liberally from, to just bring you to the place where there's nothing left but you. And you find your isness, just the sheer sense of your own being. And that's peace. That's happiness. That's sukha. So wonderful. I'm so glad that's really touching you. Yeah. Hello, Sasha in London. Good to see you. Patricia from Vancouver. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Patricia. Roberto, I felt these days I was not welcoming and letting life to enter my being. Now I know how to proceed from here. Not that I know how to proceed from here, but I guess that is the first step. It's more than the first step, right? It's actually the first and the last step, right? There's no place to proceed from the place of just allowing life to be. Where do you go from there? Back to resisting? Right? What you really mean by that, I know to proceed from here, is that is how does that become more and more your permanent disposition, your permanent asana or posture. But you don't have to worry about that, right? It is the seeing of it itself. The seeing recognizes the state of resistance that normally just pulled us in and we didn't think twice about it. It just kind of happened. We went with it. But that seeing now recognizes it. That seeing is what allows you to choose to simply allow. Because the seeing itself is pure allowing, isn't it? Our awareness doesn't object or resist or filter anything out, right? If it did, we simply wouldn't be aware. Right? So resistance comes later. The nature of you as awareness is allowing. It's love. It's the feminine principle. It's pure receptivity. Like your eyes, they don't filter anything out. If the image gets to your eye, right, it gets in, right? The eye doesn't go, oh, I don't like that. It doesn't let it in. Whatever it is, shoop, it collects it, which means it's innately allowing. All the senses are like that, aren't they? So it's actually your nature. To allow is your nature. Once it gets in, it runs into conditioning, right? And that conditioning says, oh, I don't like that. I want that. Ooh, go away, go away. Ooh, give me more, right? It's attachment and aversion. But all of that's later. Right? The actual act of allowing has already happened. All we're doing is becoming conscious of that, conscious that that is in fact the nature of life itself, and aligning with it by seeing resistance as resistance and withdrawing our attention from it, coming back consciously to this sense, I am. And that I amness or isness simply is allowing. It's love itself. That is love, right? Total self-acceptance. So it happens all by itself, Roberto. And you don't have to worry about how that's going to unfold. It really will take care of it because you've already chosen truth. It's too late. You can't go back. You can't unchoose truth. Truth's a bit like the mafia. There's no way out. Nobody leaves. Crispin, you once said, everything that is perceived draws its nature from the one awareness. I don't understand that fully. What does that mean? When a thought arises, let's look at thought. When a thought arises, where does it come from? And what is it made of? It's made of something, right? Call it energy. We have all sorts of different names, but what's your actual experience of it? Is the thought, is there like a repository of thoughts somewhere? Out there in the body or in the brain or something? That are simply sitting in a green room or, off camera, waiting for their cue to pop in? Or are they actually being created in the moment? So it's obvious, right? We have no evidence of thoughts existing at all except when they're being thought, except when you're thinking it, right? Except when it appears to you. And then when it goes away, there's absolutely no evidence that it's gone anywhere. It simply is gone. Right? It's like they refer to as, the quantum. Right? Things go in and out of existence constantly. Right? It's just a boom, 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 boom. Thought is like a quantum, you might say. It just comes into existence and goes out of existence. Okay. So it's not waiting any place, right? Right? It doesn't have any prior existence whatsoever. It appears to consciousness and then disappears from consciousness. What's it made of? It appears to consciousness. It appears in consciousness. Then what is it made of? Consciousness. Consciousness in its essential form is pure absolute awareness. Awareness without any content. But the nature of awareness isn't empty in the sense that if that was true, there'd be no creation whatsoever. The nature of awareness, you might say, the dynamic aspect of it is creation. Spontaneous, constantly real-time generation of form. Emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. So every experience is made of consciousness. Like your dreams at night. What is a dream made of? You, your thoughts, right? That's all it is, images. Every experience you're having is that. Consciousness, in its dynamic aspect, is what we experience as form, whether it be a very subtle form, like a feeling or a thought. And some feelings are so subtle, there are not even names for them. Right? You could probably just put your attention in your body for a minute, you'll find all sorts of little things that we don't really have a name. They're very subtle. And so no matter how subtle they are or how gross they are, right? Gross, not in gross. I mean gross as in more appearing more solid and material. It's made of consciousness. See, there's this belief, and it is a belief, that what is perceived exists separate from the perception. It doesn't take much to look at that and see there's absolutely no evidence for it. The only evidence for it is the thought being perceived. Right? But if you actually look at it and break it down, you see it's a total assumption. The existence of matter is an assumption. And to the strict materialist, an article of faith. We absolutely believe in it. Right? And yet there's no real evidence for it, is there? Which means if it doesn't exist separate from my perception, then it is made of my perception. The knowing of a thing is the thing. That is, the thing, the form, is made of the knowing of it. They cannot be separated, they're one. Does that answer your question? The nature of awareness is form. The form and the formless are one. Consciousness and what consciousness is conscious of are one. This is the essential unity of being. This is the true meaning of non-duality. It doesn't mean that in nirvana nothing exists. Right? It means that nothing exists independently from the consciousness that is perceiving it. That's the meaning. That's seen, you're out of samsara, you're into nirvana. Is that clear, Christopher? Love your questions. David and Elaine. Hello, David and Elaine. Yay, good to see you, good to see you, good to see you. All my people in Europe who are happy that I moved the time an hour earlier, which, considering it's funny, but most of the people who, dial into me are not in my country. Maybe that's a hint for me, huh? Brian says, nice. So excited about October 6th. Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, I've been wanting to do it for a long time. And finally, everything kind of unfolded so that I could on Om Times Radio, which has got a very large audience. So I was very pleased to be there. So looking forward to it. Those of you who may be joining now, I am restarting. Not restarting. It's going to be slightly different, but I'm going to be starting up doing my a weekly radio show starting October 6th. Internet radio, of course. But it'll be on iHeartRadio and Spotify and iTunes and all the places. So, Hendrik, hi Hendrik, hi from Lake Constance. So good to see you. Hi John, hi John. Hi Ed, Anja in Germany, Daryl from Maryland, Penny, my dear friend Penny. Hi G. Last time you were talking about dream. Can you communicate with you in a dream? For instance, hinting of a future danger event. Well, yes, of course. Remember, time is a human construct. It's a mental construct, right? It's not a reality. And so we believe ourselves to be confined in time, right? So when somebody actually sees an event in the future, and that's happened to me a number of times, we think it's some kind of extraordinary event. But that's only because our context of time keeps us locked in a sense of now that is time bound, right? Rather than what it really is, right, is the eternal now, right? Now, that said, in a dream, and sometimes not even in a dream, you can have a portentous feeling of something is going to happen. Actually, I experienced that a great deal, but not necessarily about events, but some new idea coming, a new piece of music or something, right? There's a feeling that might go there. And sometimes it's an absolute image of something that could happen, that is going to happen. It's really important, though, to just take it and just kind of give it back to the universe. Okay, what do you want? What do you want me to do with this, if anything? Don't think of it as a personal responsibility. As I've got to warn the world, right? Don't think you're some kind of the sleeping prophet, right? Like Edgar Casey, right? Just you just take it and go. Is this something I need to do something about? Right? There's a lot of things that I see coming that are not particularly happy, right? What am I supposed to do about it? This. What else can? What else is you gonna do? So the important thing is not make a big deal out of it. Recognize that what you're experiencing is your own understanding is beginning to transcend time. We said that when at the moment of Siddhartha's enlightenment, when he became the Buddha, that all of his past lives became known to him. The veil just of time just completely fell away. The whole illusion of cause and effect and of series of things in time fell away. It doesn't mean he became aware of all things in all time. What it means is the illusion of time fell away and everything was now. And so he knew all his lives, right? Because they were all because he was no longer in time. When you step out of time, you can see time. When you're in time, your vision's like this. Step out and what happens? The entire thing is beyond. So see it as an indication of your spiritual development and your awakening, right? And then just take it in your hearts. If there's anything I need to do about this, I'm willing. I'm open. Guide me. If not, just give it back to the place where it came from, and be completely and totally uh, surrendering to whatever happens. Sometimes the very act of coming aware of something in the future shifts the energy and it doesn't happen. Because you coming aware of it, suddenly the whole timeline is now messed up, right? There's a whole different, you shifted the entire energy. So at this point, the timeline's changed. So the very act of you seeing it may in fact could change the whole course. So have no assumptions about any of this stuff, and it will reveal itself to you. That's how we come to know the truth, right? We know the truth by not holding on to our assumptions and our ideas, but to remaining completely open. The moment I know something, I'm stuck, right? Because if I know it, there's no openness there, is there? But if I recognize that something's coming, okay, okay, what do I do with this? That's just open and spacious. Zen mind, beginner's mind, right? Take it like a little child would. Does that help, Penny? Beautiful, beautiful. Tesquatu, namaste to you. Johanna, good to see you. Jalisco, Mexico, good to see you. Roberto, GP, what or who is beyond or on top of you, may I ask? I hope I make myself understood with all due respect. What or who is beyond or on top of me? I'm afraid I don't. I'm afraid beyond, right? I mean, there's nothing beyond me. Right? That's not some metaphysical or non-dual, platitude. This is your everyday experience. Right? Nothing is beyond you, right? Nothing's on top of you. You're it. You're the end. The buck stops there, right? The buck stops at I. In terms of your direct experience, without referencing a bunch of other things, you're it. That place of your own being, you can't go beyond that. That's it. You are the beyond. So, if that isn't the answer, right, and I misunderstood, just I'm sure you'll let me know. John, IGP, who, what is dreaming? The dreamer is dreaming. Now, this is a difficult one, admittedly, for folks to grasp. The dreamer and the dream are one. There's a friend of mine who put some lyrics to a piece of music I wrote. She said, if this is just a dream, who wakes up when it ends? And that's the question. When the dreamer falls away, to whom is it going to fall away? When the dream ends, who is there experiencing the dream ending? Well, it would have to be you, the true you, the real you. And that kind of awareness, right, isn't dreaming. So even the dream and the dreamer are both being perceived by something, aren't they? There is an awaring going on, consciousness going on. We talk of the dream and the dreaming, say, who's dreaming, right? And there's a dreamer, but these are objects of perception, aren't they? Very subtle objects of perception for sure, but they're definitely objects of perception. Who's doing the perceiving? That's the same one that will be there when the dream ends. So who or what is dreaming? I can't give you a word or a concept for it. It would be doing you a disservice. It's you, but not you. It's the you beyond you. It is the... Instead, I point you continually to the one who is perceiving. Because that's you, and that's immediate, and that's right here. Right? It's not like, who's going to be there? Stop dreaming. You're trying to imagine someone. Well, it's you. But it's you not dreaming. And you realizing that you've never actually been dreaming. That in order, you can't. You're pure awareness. Pure awareness can't sleep. Right? So pure awareness has to conjure someone who is asleep and dreaming. And that's how it experiences it. That's how you experience creation. And that one dreaming is simply a particular point of perception. And in that point of perception, when it gets focused, boom, you have a universe. A universe appears out of the emptiness of pure infinite potential. Does that answer it for you, John? It's very funny, as I was giving that conversation, there were a couple of people looking at, around me are some placards that categorize the history of events, because this is rich in the history of all sorts of things, the Spanish conquest, of the Native Americans, enslaving them, and them also having a revolt, and all sorts of things. It's all kind of categorized here. So people kind of walk around here. And I'm just was curious if those people had ever heard a conversation like that before, ever. Interesting. That may be an open door. Daryl, yes, all is consciousness. Thoughts certainly are. I find myself, however, getting angry at negative thoughts and desires, knowing that it too comes from the absolute, as does the anger, or resistance or resentment. All of those are perceived, right? So who's the I that's getting angry at them, right? It's just a different self-image. This is the spiritual one now. I'm going to be a spiritual guy, and I'm going to be so I'm not going to I'm not going to have those bad thoughts anymore, right? That I is the problem. That I, now trying to get rid of those thoughts, right, is itself a thought. So who's getting angry? Nobody, right? It's simply the arising of the feeling of anger and thoughts that go along with it, and then a sense of identity that says, I am angry. All of that's arising and appearing in front of perception. And none of it's you. The thoughts of anger and or desire, or I want, right? Those aren't you. They're just things bubbling up in consciousness. The reaction to those, saying I shouldn't have those, and the I that that is also projected on those feelings and thoughts. If you understand that the I isn't real, the thoughts and feelings don't matter anymore, because there's nobody there to take ownership of it. Right? That was what Buddha made so clear about the end of suffering, was not getting rid of the circumstances that cause suffering, getting rid of the sufferer. Without suffer, there is no such thing as suffering. Circumstances aren't inherently a causative of suffering. Darrow continues, years of condition that have me believing that only good comes from the absolute, which is complete BS. Correct. The absolute is beyond what we want to call good and evil. In order to have good and evil, you have to take a position. The moment you take a position, you create a sense of identity, and you outline the infinite into a form. Well, that can't be the awareness. And without contrast, right? With some, because I take a position, so what I know is good, but what you know is bad. But without that contrast, nothing is possible. Without the yin yang, nothing's possible, is it? You can't have existence without contrast. And at the beginning of a satsang, I talked about that essential reference to that, the knowing of yourself without reference to anything else. Everything else in the universe is contrast. You describe one thing in terms of something. The only thing you can't is you. You cannot do that. And this is the immortal, eternal freedom. But that doesn't make the contrast of duality wrong. It simply makes it how consciousness experiences. Because without it, there's no experience, is there? I don't experience myself directly. I can't. I'm infinite. So how do I experience myself? How can I know myself? Through manifesting the contrasted. So everything comes from there in all of its opposites, right? But these opposites are not like a moral stand. Some people say it's beyond good and evil. That scares the hell out of a lot of people. Right? Who knows? So there's a lot of evil going on in the world, right? But evil from whose perspective? Right? If we come to truly understand it, we'll understand that it's much better to simply call it ignorance. Right? It's ignorance. It's delusional. So those words, good and evil, are always relative, right? No matter what I'm doing, nobody gets up in the morning and goes, I'm going to get everybody. Nobody does that, right? For evil for the sake of evil. That's just something we made up, called it a devil, somebody who takes pleasure in that. The pleasure is they're just so self-focused, that is so focused on the I that doesn't actually exist, right? Everything is seen from that reference point. In the extreme, we call it, psychopathic narcissism. And there's several prominent people around that have that. But and that creates what we would call evil. Right? But that's a position, right? Judging something that in and of itself is neither good nor bad. It's neither evil nor virtuous. So while the absolute creates all of it, it's not like the absolute is making good and evil, right? Like God has made good and evil and is enjoying watching them duke it out, which is what a lot of Christianity believes, right? Um, we're the ones that make something good or evil by taking the position. No position, no good and evil. It's total freedom and total love. So, is that something any clearer for you, Daryl? Anybody for that matter? And Penny says, yes, thanks. I guess that means I got your answer right. Roberto says, answer understood, GP. Good, Roberto. Kuljit, good to see you. Hi, GP. You've often mentioned that you'd like to move to Europe some point. How do you approach your desire? What a lovely question. The way I recommend to everybody to approach your desire, you don't attach to it, because the moment you attach to it, it becomes important. Then you start comparing this moment with the imagined future, and this moment will come up short, and ta-da, suffering. That's what happens. So the desire arose, right? I can't deny it. I can't pretend it isn't there. Becoming not having attachment doesn't mean there is no desire. Being desireless does not mean there are no desires. It simply means that you acknowledge desires for what they are. They simply arise in consciousness, the way hair grows or food digests or anything arises in consciousness. It's just another aspect, another form of energy. It can be portentous of something coming, but it does not mean something's lacking, right? So the desire is there. I can't deny it. Great. There it is. I want to move to Europe. Will it happen? I don't know. It's not up to me, right? My only job is to honor it, right? To recognize it as a function of life, as a cosmic event, and not make it a personal thing of mine. Right? But then it'll move the system. Every now and then I look at things. I've been doing some research into it, how that would work. It's kind of it's an inspiring interaction. It's an inspiring way of simply charting one's life. Eckhart talked about when he was writing The Power of Now that he had a strong impulse to go to the west coast of North America. Right? He started out, I think, in California and a couple other places, and eventually ended up in Vancouver, BC. And he said that when he was on the west coast of North America, the book was just writing itself. When he'd go back to England, right, nothing. Right? Now people say, oh, that's just a belief. But, life has its own way of unfolding. So I don't project anything onto the desire, right? The desire's there, right? When it pops up, it gets my attention and my love. But I'm kind of like the garden, and it's the seed, right? It's planted there, and I'm the garden. I take care of it. I keep the weeds out. I water it and the like. But it's a seed of which I know it's a seed of something, but I don't even know what it is. I don't know what kind of flower it is, really. I have an inkling. Is it a sunflower? Is it a petunia? Is it an oak tree? Right? It's not up to me to say. Right? So if you see every desire as a cosmic event, an impersonal cosmic event, simply appearing or manifesting through you, right? Then you don't have attachment to it, but you're not shoving it away like, oh, I need to be free of desire in order to be spiritual. That is what it means to truly be free of desire, right? It means that you acknowledge it, right? But you're not personally attached to it. Does that answer it for you? John, thanks, GP. The big I that I am is perceiving from this point of perception, and what is perceived is not I. Yes and no. It is it is it's important. It's critical, actually, in especially in the initial stages of self-inquiry. The not I is more important. Right? A lot of people want to go right to we are all one, right? Hold hands, sing kumbaya, and that sort of thing. And you cannot get to oneness as an ego, as a person, right? You cannot make two one, right? But you can make one two. So it starts with the not I that gets you to the big I, which is actually you, right? What else is I, right? It's not I is not a thing over there. Nobody says, "Oh, look, I." No, it's I is always looking, right? At that point, right, as that becomes clear, it naturally turns back around, right, to see that everything is made of I. So it's all I. That's all there is I. And I am perceiving from this point of perception. I am perceiving the perceiving. I am perceiving the perceived. And it is all made of I. It is all I. But initially, this neti, this isn't me, clearing away everything we've identified ourselves with until there's nothing left but you. Right? That's the enlightenment part, right? Um, that is what most people seek and think that's the end. That's the arhat or the vijnana, the lesser vehicle. But the bodhisattva, the greater vehicle, then turns around and goes, all right, then all of this is me. All of it. Right? And now it's a different kind of journey, the tantric journey. This is really, I emphasize this a lot, because it's not one or the other. It's not all, we're all one and love and all of that sort of stuff. That was tried and it really failed, right? Tried to just love everybody and all of that. You can't do that as a person. The ego cannot do that, right? It's got to divide, because the ego can't survive unless it defines itself in contrast to somebody else. Better or worse, doesn't matter, as long as there's a me that is different, right? Some I'm better than, some I'm not, right? Some I lord it over, some I'm jealous of, right? And so the ego has to be seen through first. Once it has been seen through, and to the degree that it has been seen through, to that degree, the genuine oneness of universal love begins to appear, all by itself. Because what else could it possibly be? I'm looking at a tree, but I'm looking at me. Right? But that me, in order to know that that tree is me, that me cannot be referring to a finite person, can it? That would be stupid to say. It's ridiculous. It's not me. Right? Depends on what you mean by me. And so first that I has to be purified. Right? It has to be brought into being I and nothing but I. Then you see that that's all there is nothing but I. Does that answer it for you, John? Oh, questions are coming in slower today. Usually I've got a whole bunch down below. Maybe you're all being kind to me. Or probably because last time it was 15 minutes that the microphone was out, and it took me that long to get down to see the comments about it. So maybe you're all just being a little bit patient to make sure that make a comment, I see it right away. Robert, hi G. You know what's weird? Alcohol doesn't really work. I can't get drunk. I can drink all night and stay perfectly sharp. I've had that experience too. Yeah, it does not. It does not. It not that I don't feel it, right? Of course, right? And I like my glass of wine or two. So does Eckhart Tolle, by the way. It's very funny to hear him talk about it. But it does not affect me cognitively in the slightest. I feel it in the body, but nothing. Yeah, absolutely nothing. So, yeah, there's a certain amount of mental clarity that comes with self-discovery that is beyond simply a functioning of the mind. It's a spirit governing the function of the mind, and pure awareness does not get wasted. Period. It simply doesn't. Tatesh Holmes says maybe it was because of the environment, sunlight in South America. Did I miss something from you, Tatesh? I'm not really sure what you're talking about, what you're referring to. Did I miss something before this? I'm looking back and I don't remember seeing a comment before. Um, just to please um, expand a little bit so I know what it is you're referring to. Kuljit says, yes, thank you, GP. That's exactly how I am approaching it. Allowing all of it in, even the awareness that it's not quite here yet, and not attaching myself to any of it, letting it be there. Yes, even the thought, I'm not there yet, I'm not enlightened, or the thought, I am enlightened, appears to it, which is beyond enlightenment or not enlightenment or delusion. That is an irrelevant term for awareness. It is transcendent of all description and all opposites, all categorization. It is transcendent. It cannot be put into words. It can't be done. To try to put it into words is to fail, which is why every day, all day of my life is a failure, because I can't help but try to put it into words, knowing full well that I can't. Right? So it's a good failure, right? It's a healthy failure. So imagine having a pint with GP and Eckert. Church. It's actually fun. It's actually fun. For all the, yeah. There's something about the pub and the camaraderie, and like, yes, it can get out of control, and for a lot of people, it's not a very good thing. But it's just one of those things where there's all sorts of there's all sorts of some young kid was over here very impressed with my camera and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. Um, there's all sorts of social settings that the whole spiritual thing isn't about making life stoic, right? The more you know who you are, the more life is a miracle, a mystery, and our only purpose is to celebrate it, right? I mean, celebrate it. I mean, this is fucking amazing. if I can put it bluntly, right? I mean, look at the trees behind me. I'm looking at flowers around me and feeling the air. It's like, what? When I drop all the context and all of the explanations and all of the stuff, and I just am here in this moment, it's almost overwhelming. It's absolutely almost overwhelming. This is the power of now. This is what Eckert talks about. Everything becomes vivid and powerful and significant and present, right? You can just feel the presence of this tree, right? And I'm, of course, looking at a bunch of trees as well, because I'm sitting in a park and beautiful old buildings and the clouds going by in the sky. And yeah, I can talk about the clouds and its condensation and all that kind of stuff, which is the way the mind likes to describe it. But take that out, and what do you got? A miracle. An utter miracle. And whether that be sitting in a park or sitting in a pub, I mean, when I go out to dinner by myself, which is whenever I go out to dinner, I'm by myself, I sit at the bar. I don't sit at a table by myself, looking at the Lonely Hearts Club. I sit at the bar, if it's slow, the bartender wants to talk to somebody. If it's if it's crowded, there's always things going on. Even if I don't talk to anybody or have a conversation, it's a celebration of life. Right? As I just watch people, the kids playing, or lovers holding hands, or I was just fascinated. I was out here earlier while the guy every day comes out and waters these. You guys, you can't see them, um, but there's these. Wait, what the hell? Let me pull this up here. Let me see if I can get some into the picture here. Oh yeah, there it is. You see on all the lampposts there are these potted plants. I think they're begonias, something like that. Don't really know the name. Who cares? They're gorgeous. And every day, this guy comes out um, and waters them. This long thing and waters this truck at every single one of them. And this place is just immaculate. So I've gotten to know him. His name is Andrew, right? And I just have to tell him how wonderful is the job he's doing. But I watch this guy, this kind of pudgy guy, right? Walking up with his hose every day. It's like the water gets turned to wine. It's just hard to describe the beauty of it. Right? But this is life. Life without all the overhead of the mind and its projections and all the stupid stuff, right? Which is simply the mind imposing its view of things on what in fact is a miracle of such beauty that it is just takes your breath away. I mean, look, folks, none of this had to happen, did it? It's nothing that forced any of this to happen. This is what is. Right? I can't impress that more. This is what is. Beauty is the nature of being. Truth and beauty are one. Trying to wax this poetic. I wish I had the words of poets. I mean, how do you? All we can do is try to capture it over and over again in music and dance, art, in romance. I mean, all we can do is try to just stand in awe of what is a gift. This is grace. This is pure grace. Not like you are this meaningless little thing and God has given you something. You are this. This is what you are. I just said I would join you. Good. All right. When I get to Europe or anytime, a pint of bitters. And I'll speak in with the best British accent I can, or Irish, whatever it means. Robert Hill, is the USA on the verge of civil war? Are the people going to wake up? Corporate America has hijacked the government a long time ago. I don't know. I really don't. I don't really like to talk politics on this, but it really isn't politics. You're absolutely right. We're in the middle of World War III. World War III is a war of the mind. It is a war of perception, trying to create truth. The U.S. is not a democracy. It's a republic, but it's not a democracy anymore. It's more like Rome. Right? It had a Senate. It was a republic, but the senators were all appointed by Caesar, and they were all members of rich, important families. So your representative was not chosen by you, right? That's pure republic. Right? That's what we have. Right? The money, the donors choose the representatives. Right? And for the most part, that's always the case. The one with the most money usually wins the vast majority of the time. I think it's like 90% of the time. It's pretty amazing. Right? And so it becomes a battle of truth. And because the corporations also control the media, the whole conversation is being manipulated. So the Democrats think it's the Republicans think it's the Democrats, right? It's those. The tyranny is because of the socialists, right? Right. When the real culprits remain completely unseen. I mean, it is so well executed. The devil himself would be proud, right? But that is the devil, right? Christ put it beautifully, right? If you want to understand this whole thing, just take literally the words of Christ, which I wish Christians would do. That these particular ones, the love of money is the root of all evil. Period. He didn't qualify that, by the way, and say sometimes. He said, that's it. That's it. It's unqualified. Buddha put the same thing. He referred to the three poisons, which are ignorance, delusion, and greed. The love of money is the root of all evil. If you look at the government, it is dominated and completely controlled by money. The desire for money. Since the pandemic started, we have seen the largest transfer of wealth from everybody to the top 1% in the history of the country. Right? So why? They don't want money for schools. They don't want money to help people. Right? They don't want money to make sure people get medical care when they need it. No, that's wrong. Right? So there is a totalitarian instinct that goes with money. And there's been psychological study after psychological study that has shown the more money one has, the less empathetic they become. They kind of get locked in this world, right? Completely cause off gated communities, private armies, private jets, zero contact with anybody else, and it's like a bubble gets created. The love of money is the root of all evil. It separates. It 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 cuts things apart. And the problem is the civil war will be between the two factions, neither one of them which is actually the real culprit. So it won't matter who wins. Both parties in this country are controlled by the same interests. The same people donate to both because they don't care which side wins. They have no loyalty. Corporations have no loyalty except to profit. And we actually have it. We have a historic example of where this has actually already happened, where there has been a power that has been greater than the sovereign nations, which everyone thinks is it. And it was the Roman Catholic Church. I think it was 800 AD, where when Rome finally fell. But the Catholic Church is still going on, and throughout all the medieval period of time into the Renaissance, and really well into I think probably the 19th century, every country, the kings were all beholden to the Pope. Now the Pope was this little place, right in the middle of Rome, this little place, right? Any one of the kings could have just easily crushed it, but it actually controlled countries. So we have a model by which this has happened before, and it's happening again. And really, what can you do about it? See clearly. Know who you are. There's nothing else you can do, right? And out of that will grow a wisdom, because what the world needs is love, intelligence, truth, a willingness to look at both sides, to not doggedly grab onto a side, right? To see through bullshit, right? To see and to be able to spot when somebody's being motivated by greed, and steer clear of it, but at the same time not get openly defiant and defensive and take another side to create yet more conflict. So that's as much as I want to say about it. Eradicate greed from ourselves. That's because greed comes from a personal sense of self. because the true self needs nothing. Could it possibly be greedy from? It gives and gives and gives and gives, right? I get a kick out of people say, well, you know, I'm giving myself to God. Like, what does God need? What could I possibly give? It's like, it's absurd. Anyway, so you're all going to join me for a pint. Good. Dave and Elaine, in light of what you just said on I, British spiritual teacher Russell Williams titled his book, Not I, Not Other Than I. Yeah, you and he have summed it up perfectly. When this is seen, it is clear. Yes, this is the nature of non-duality. You cannot say even I. It's I and other, and then it's not I and other. This is the wonder of it all, right? It is neither this nor that nor both nor neither. It's this other place that is completely transcendent. Beautiful. Marcel, GP, can you comment on the possible connection between self-inquiry and experiencing synchronicity? Sure. What is the experience of synchronicity? The concrete manifestation of oneness, right? And self-inquiry is about discovering, right? Is seeing through all the sense of division and separation, so that that oneness is actually realized as the reality. And then it's not synchronicity. It's, well, this is, of course, the nature of all things. Of course, things are going to line up. When I'm not used to them lining up, all right, when I think I want them to line up in a certain way, and then they line up, we go, oh, synchronicity, right? But that's just a word from a particular point of perception. Right? The fact of the matter is, it's only us recognizing it that's causing it synchronicity. The fact is, it's happening all the time. That's all there is, right? Whether it seems to be something mundane, like we had an appointment to have a conversation, and we both showed up at the same time. We don't call that synchronicity, but it was, right? Everything is in sync because everything is a manifestation of one. When the sense of being two, when the sense of separation is gone, so is the sense of syncing, right? One doesn't sync with itself, right? It is. But when we see synchronicity, what we're really seeing is the manifestation of that oneness. Right? But we're not used to that, right? And so it looks like it's something quite mysterious and miraculous. And it is. It's utterly beautiful because it manifests in concrete form the inner harmony of being. And harmony of that oneness isn't just one note, right? Harmony is like all different notes, different colors, right? But they all, because of their common essence, they give expression to the expressionless, and that's beauty, right? Synchronicity, love, truth, kindness, compassion. So, is that answered for you, Marcel? Thank you for that great question. And love hearing the bells in the background as you describe the beauty where you are. Yes, yeah, it's lovely, and I get a kick out of it because a lot of churches these days, they have speakers, right, that are broadcasting recordings of bells. These are real bells. You can feel it as much as hear it. It's just wonderful. Cool Jeet says, that was a pretty good British accent, GP. Those of you who don't know, I actually used to do that for a living, voiceovers. I do all sorts of accents and dialects and character voices. One of the video games I was actually, I think I had like 11 different voices on it. I even one did a whole crowd scene. They recorded one voice at a time. And so I made it sound like a whole crowd. That was fun. Um, so accents have always just come easy for me. If I hear it, I can usually imitate it. Right? Parrot. Saltantillo. Um, let's see. Well, it's not the democratic government that has presided over these enormous transfers of wealth. Yes, money is at the root of our system, but I don't believe in false equivalences. Well, I don't know what you're referring to in terms of false equivalences. If you're saying by democratic, you mean Democratic Party. It's not the Democratic Party has presided over these enormous transfers. If you're referring to Democrats and Republicans, they're both equally responsible for it. They just do it differently, right? But this has been happening really since the 70s. It started in the 70s, but with Reagan is when it actually started happening. So I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. So um, I'll, uh, I'll leave it at that. And I also really, you know, I can't say I could speak everything with authority on this. You know, I try to not have. I try to keep everything in terms of what can we actually do. Well, go within. I say a little bit about what I see, but what I see mostly is that greed is a poison. It's a poison that makes us less than human. It makes us unnaturally cruel and selfish. So that's what I have to. That's really where I want to point it. It is a crisis of consciousness. It is a crisis of mind. We lost our way. What is truly valuable? Right? That has to be discovered. And I think the more blatant it becomes, the more that is discovered. It's crystal clear to many people that love and love alone is the answer, and it's just not a cute little phrase anymore, right? It is. What else is going to save us? More hate, more war? No, sir. That is not going to be the case. So, Robert, thanks. GP, much love. You're welcome. Sarah, back from France. Back in France. Great to be here. Welcome back. Marcel, what a beautiful answer. Thank you. You're welcome. Very welcome. Ivan, hello from Bulgaria. Hello to you, Ivan. Ben, yo, G. Not sure we can know this, but do you think there's some part of the big I that knows absolutely everything? Every why, every how. Experiences are all at once knowingly, in contrast to the infinitude of our human knowing, even our knowing of the transcendent. Not in the sense that it's this huge repository of all possible knowledge, because if it was, it would be finite, right? We think of knowledge then as being these little chunks of knowledge or truth, right? And there's just an infinite amount of it, and then there's something that knows it all, right? It's not that kind of a knowing, right? Again, the creation isn't something that's pre-planned or destined. It's not made of little things that happened to already existed. It's more like jazz in that it is totally improvised. It's a spontaneous happening in the moment. So the knowing that I refer to is the knowing that I am, and that I am is boundless. Right? Matter of fact, it's so boundless it doesn't even have a word for boundless. Right? So it's not knowledge that's like held in some kind of really big repository. Knowledge spontaneously appears and disappears. Right? Arising out of the knowingness, something gets known for a moment and then it's gone. And of course, it's always relative. That kind of knowledge is always in terms of one thing in terms of another, right? It's always arising out of the moment. It's needed for the moment, right? It lasts its lifetime and then it falls away. Then that knowledge is no longer relevant, right? So we can know this, right? Because it is the knowingness itself that is constantly manifesting itself as knowledge. And that knowingness is you. So when you're talking about the big I that knows absolutely everything, that's you, buddy. You are that big I, right? And so knowledge not being a thing, an objective, substantive thing, right? It becomes a spontaneous appearing, right? Like jazz, like great improvisation. So it's not an infinite amount of knowledge, it's the infinite emptiness that gives rise to all knowledge. So it's a different kind of thing. And you have the primal knowingness, which is your everyday experience. It's what you are. So, yo ben. Let's see. Ein Faza. I'm just going to call you Ein Faza. Can you give a tip on handle anxious, repulsive thinking? Yes. Leave it alone. Short answer. I don't want to sound so flippant, right? The problem isn't the anxious, repulsive thinking, it is our resistance to it. So our resistance to it literally perpetuates. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. What if that I don't want that disappears and it simply becomes this is what is here now? It is here now. I acknowledge that it's here now, right? Because I might as well. It's here, right? And then let go of all resistance to it. Right? That's not easy to do because anxious, repulsive thinking and anxious, gives rise to ugly thoughts and that sort of thing. Yeah, they're not pretty, right? But then they're there. To truly become free means you don't get rid of them, right? You become unmoved by them. And if you're unmoved by them, unintimidated by them, you just notice because the bottom line is these thoughts are not you and they're not yours. They're the result of conditioning, right? And because of the conditioning, we have these certain patterns of thoughts. Thoughts form patterns just the way all nature does, right? This tree is an energy pattern, right? That's constantly expanding and changing. Thoughts are no different. They form patterns. That forming of patterns is what we call conditioning, right? Now, when I'm identified with that, this is my thought. I hate this thought. I want to get rid of it, right? We're identified with our conditioning as if that's you. If you take a step back and recognize that it is simply a pattern of thought that has been sustained by my identification with it, by my either liking it, I like that thought, I want more of it, or I hate that thought, I want it to go away, I want it to go away, right? That taking of a position creates the conflict. That conflict actually creates the glue that holds it all together. Drop out of the fight. Drop your position, right? There, instead of I have anxious or repulsive thoughts, there are anxious, repulsive thoughts. Right? I'm not my thoughts. Right? You're not. You're really not your thoughts. I'm aware of the thoughts. I am witnessing thoughts. I am not those thoughts. At that point, you let them be. Right? You don't hold on, you don't push away, which means there's no conflict. What happens when there's no conflict? Peace. What's it going to do? It eventually has to dissolve because you're the power that sustains it. It isn't self-sustained. Right? It's so important to see. No thought pattern is self-sustained. It doesn't have any energy of its own. Right? You unplug the fan, what happens? It spins for a while, but then it stops. It slows down and stops. Why? Because it is not the source of its own energy. Right? So what's the source of the energy of every pattern of thought? You and your belief in it. And that belief in it takes the form of attachment to it or resistance to it. Does that help? Eine Feise im. Forget it, can't do it. Why you torturing me with such a long name? Cool G. GP, I think you missed my question on wisdom just before the British accent. If you have time, thank you. If not, no problem next time. Let's see. I will scroll back and see if I can find it. Kojit. Could you say more about the wisdom that comes through? Was there something before that? When I have a spiritual question in my mind, the wisdom that comes through is astonishing, and I have to pause and allow the feeling to take over. I don't want that feeling to end. Right, of course you don't, right? But that attachment, but every feeling is going to end, right? That's just the reality, right? So when wisdom comes through, it's not just, oh, I know. There's a feeling behind it. There's a power. There's an energy. There's a love. There's a release. There's just an experience of the flow of life, the self-evidence of the truth of it, right? Which is, of course, what it is. Wisdom is simply truth, recognizing the truth, because you are the truth. And so it comes with the whole experience. But you are that truth. The impact of an insight or a moment of a wisdom coming through creates an inner emotional state as well. That's what you're referring to, that, ooh, I really like that. I don't want to let go of that. That's dangerous. If you hold on to it, right, you can't hold on to anything. And you don't have to hold on to you, right? Because you're just here. Right? When you just let it come and you let it go, right, then you remain, you get to experience the high of it, right, which is wonderful, but you don't hold on to the high of it because the high can't be sustained, right? Everybody knows even if you get to a high and you got it all the time, it's no longer a high, is it? You get, I want a high now, I want a higher high. Boom. Right. Addictions work that way, right? So don't be attached to anything because you're not a feeling. You're not coming and going. And realizing that you're not coming and going, and that some experiences are going to be high and some aren't, right? There's going to be bliss, ecstasy. There's also going to be grief, sadness. If you resist none of those, you find that you are the absolutely still, content, peaceful background against which it all appears. And in fact, if you weren't that peaceful, still background, nothing could appear. It's got to have the blank background. Take a diamond, right, and throw it in a bunch of rocks. Nobody might notice. Even if you're looking for it, you might not get noticed, right? But take that same diamond and put it on the perfectly flat, empty black background. Wow! It just every aspect of it begins to appear. You are that black background against which all of these experiences appear, and they couldn't appear. If the background was busy, you couldn't see them, right? If there's a lot of noise going on, you can't hear the music. The music has to be heard in silence, right? So, um, uh, I want you to come back to your emptiness. The emptiness, which is the completely open, spacious background of all being. And without that, there is nothing. Nothing can exist. So you are that which allows experience to happen, right? But because of conditioning, we are attached to some experiences. We are averse to others. That is the projection of the false self. Awareness has no aversion or attachment. It simply lets it in. The eye does not judge with whether what it sees is ugly or beautiful. It just lets it in. That's the nature of awareness. Recognizing that that is what you are alleviates all suffering, right? Not experience. Matter of fact, it makes experience more vivid and beautiful, right? But it frees you from your preference. I like this more than that. That I goes, because that's the cause of all the suffering. Oh my word. All of a sudden. Oh, all of a sudden the questions are increasing again. Andre. Hello, Andre. Hello, GP. Can you talk a bit about boredom? Nah, it's too boring. I observed that if there's a feeling of boredom and I stay with it, it disappears. But as soon as I start moving again, it really reappears. It's a beautiful insight, right? All it means is that the nervous system, the feeling of boredom, when you see it isolated, you get into that space and you just see it. There's no identification with it. And there it goes, because it's 1:30 here. When there's no no, not 1:30, 2:30. When there's no identification with it, uh, right, then you see it as it is, and because of no identification, it has no meaning, has no anything, right, and so it dissipates, right, because there's nothing holding it. Now, you start into your day, you're doing things, right, activity. The activities that you're doing in the nervous system have feelings and thoughts associated with them. Now, that association isn't hardwired, it's not real, it's not absolute. That's all just because of conditioning. So it's completely arbitrary, right, and fictional, right, which is why you can break those, right? But certain things will trigger boredom. So the deepening of this understanding, any kind of feeling, anxiety, whatever, the deepening of this understanding is to see the association that's taken place, and that the event that appears to be causing the boredom is actually neutral, and the boredom, or whatever the feeling happens to be, has simply, by conditioning, been associated with that event. So this event happens, this feeling gets triggered. You're breaking that connection so that feeling doesn't get triggered anymore, and life becomes absolutely peaceful because life is neutral. It has no inherent meaning, it has no inherent effect. All of that is the result of programming, and all the programming is simply cultural, familial, right? Whatever happened with your family and the like. Um, so all of that is simply conditioned, and because of the conditioned, a particular set of responses to the event. Now, if the event itself was causing it, then that event should cause it in everyone. Right? If the effect was in that cause, in that event, right, then everyone would be affected in the same way. But since it isn't, it's obviously not in the event. Right? The color, flowers don't have a color. Right? The tree isn't green. Those leaves aren't green. Color is an aspect of light, not of the object. Right? The object just reflects and absorbs certain parts of the light, and so you see those parts of the light. If the tree was green, if the leaf was green, then even in the dark it would be green. But it's not, is it? Because the color is an aspect of light. And you notice during the day, Monet's haystacks, right? Right? That he painted at different times of the day. The very same subject, completely different because of the light. Right? So it's all our perception of it, the conditioning towards it, and when that conditioning is not questioned, is not scrutinized, we think that there's this hardwired connection between the event and my reaction. Right? But when you see that there isn't, boom, the opportunity for freedom is there. Freedom from all reaction. Because, and that's one of the key things I look for in people for spiritual growth is the dissipating of the reactive patterns. So, how's that, Andre? Bonnie, hello, Bonnie. I, I am not this body and mind, and I am simply the pure knowing itself. So, what are all these sentient and insentient objects in the world? They are the knowing. Okay? So, you know that about yourself. Okay? You know that about that I am not this body. So, what then are you? If I'm not the body, I'm not the emotions, I'm not experience, I'm not anything that I'm seeing, what then am I? The only place you can go is to I am pure awareness. I am that. I am the knowingness. Now, phase 2, right? That's the Vedantic inward path. Right? When that's cleared, we turn around. The Bodhisattva path. the outward path, the tantric path, goes back out. What is all of this? What is the tree? When there's nothing but perception, what is that tree? So the tree and the knowing of the tree are the same. The tree is made of the knowing of it. Every object, whether it appears to be sentient or insentient, is made of the knowing of it. And this becomes deeper when you realize that the knower is one. That the knower that appears as Bonnie and the knower that appears as GP is the same knower. And that eliminates the idea that this person's world and that person, this sentient, this isn't sentient. The sentience is a projection. The sentience is in the viewer, not in the viewed. So some things tend to animate and reflect more consciousness, some less. Some a lot of sentience, and some appear to have no sentience whatsoever. But they're both objects of knowing, right? So whether it appears to be sentient or it's, a mountain, according to our definition, is not sentient, but is it not beautiful? Right? As a flower, not sentient, but beautiful. So everything known is made of the knowing of it. It's a very deep truth. This is part of the turning around, right? Always deepening that sense of I am, and nothing else. I just am. And I just got distracted by a beautiful little goldfinch that went by. And then turning that around again. What is the universal I am? The I principle. And so you see that there are not things in the universe that have consciousness. Consciousness has the universe. Consciousness is not a thing that's here and there, a lot in some places, a little in others. Consciousness holds within itself everything that exists, and it is made of consciousness, or made of the knowing of it. Is that pointing you in the right direction, Bunny? Andre, all teachers say that by staying with the feeling of boredom, it transforms. But I see it is non-existent, yet it exists. You're right. Not all teachers say that it transforms. Well, yes, it is going to transform. It's going to transform out of what we think it is into simply pure experience. And then you get to the deeper place which you perceived. It both exists and does not exist. That's the only way you can express it, because you cannot express perfect oneness, because there's nothing other than the oneness to use to express it, right? And so that's what Buddha said. It neither exists nor does not exist. And a good example of that is just like a cartoon character or some fictional film character. We can all talk about Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny or Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader. We can talk about them, right? With great, right? They exist, but they don't exist, right? Everything is like that. It both exists and does not exist. That's the only way you can put it, because it is transcendent even of being and non-being. So it's actually a higher state you've arrived at. And then you see that it transforms. If something doesn't exist and both does not exist, then there's actually nothing that is transforming, right? In which case you might even say, and rightly so, nothing exists at all, and yet everything exists. This is the kind of strange language that people kind of go, huh? When they hear non-duality and they think it makes no sense. It takes some time to pierce through that veil. Thank you, Andre. Yes, thank you. The name is German. It means a fiber in the fabric of life. That is so beautiful. You've told me that before, but I'm not sure I'll remember it next time. But that is so beautiful. Fiber in the fabric of life. Yeah. And you are both the fiber and the whole fabric. You're both the honey and the taste of honey. Gulsin, what do you think of Carl Jung's theory of individual and collective unconscious? Um, well, to Carl Jung, he didn't mean by the term collective unconscious what we these days have come to think it means, which means there's this place where underneath we're all one. He did not believe that. He saw the collective unconscious as simply those aspects of human nature and human mind and human consciousness which were the same for all of us because we are the same species. That's what he meant by the collective unconsciousness, that which is universally true amongst all beings. But he did not believe that there was this place where there was this one consciousness. Right? Well, he may have, but that's not his whole theory about the collective unconscious. And so, I mean, it was a direct perception. It was very brilliant. Yes, there is that which is absolutely the same for all of us. But I go one further to say that at that point, the individual itself is an image in the collective, right? And for me, there is no such thing as an unconscious. That's just an idea we came up with to try to explain where thoughts go when you're not thinking them. There is no unconscious. Do you know of unconscious? Here we are in consciousness talking about unconscious, which is simply a concept in consciousness. Do you know anything other than consciousness? Have you ever experienced anything other than consciousness? Even if you fainted or you're under anesthetic, right? You're still aware of it, right? You have no cognitive thought of it. Every night we go to sleep. It's dreamless. We have a dreamless sleep as well as the dreams, right? Where there's no content at all, right? And so there's no time. Boom, it goes by like that. And what happens? We wake and go, wow, that was a good sleep. Right? So consciousness is always there, even if there's no content. So unconscious is trying to describe really conditioning, these patterns that are set up, right? That are just happening automatically. But we ended up thinking the unconscious mind is like this repository of things. It's not. There's no such thing. It is simply reactive patterns. On the computer, there's a little tiny program that when I hit any key, right, it activates a particular program. So there's a programmed connection between a particular event that happens on the computer and how it responds, right? So the key that has a B on it, if I press that, there's a program that then creates an image on the screen that looks like the B. Now I could easily shuffle those all up, so you hit the B and you get a V. You hit an M and you get a question mark, right? Because it's just the way the programming is, nothing more. And the program is just a state; it's just sitting there, right? It doesn't do anything, right? It's neither conscious nor unconscious, right? It doesn't even do anything until you hit the key, and then I'm on, right? It's not waiting. There's nobody there waiting. So our the common understanding of unconscious, of unconscious, makes it in some kind of a mind, a repository, a place. It's not. It's not. So I even say boldly, there's no such thing as the unconscious mind, or even subconscious mind. Right? There is nothing other than consciousness, and if we grasp that, we'll be seeing how things are simply being created in the moment, right? And they simply follow a pattern, nothing more. So, how's that for you, Gulsin or Gulson? Oh boy, here come. Why do you guys always inundate me with questions when we're down to the last 15, 20 minutes? I'm angry at you. Hemunk, hi Hemunk. Hey G, what's your opinion on people suffering from ADHD who meditate? Does it help them with the condition? As far as I know, it does. Yeah. Uh, if if the meditation is undertaken of a way of being aware, even of the fact, because ADHD is a state of the mind, right? It's a mind that's jumping from one thing to another. If you actually really expand the definition of it, you'll see that we're all suffering from it, right? And it's actually being exacerbated by the fact that, right now, probably many of you have gotten little notifications of a text came in or an email or an Instagram or something like that, right? So it is right now, we're being overwhelmed by invitations to not be able to focus attention. And it's really amazing that the effect it's having, especially on younger people, that attention span is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's not healthy. The nervous system was never meant for that. It's creating increased levels of stress and anxiety. And and we don't realize the cause of it is that we're simply not present. So meditation is a perfect antidote to that, because it brings attention back to yourself and out of the distractions. And because it is simply a way the mind is being programmed to act, it means it's not inherent in me, and I can stand back and witness even the ADHD. And if I do that, the act of doing that, of removing myself from it, robs it of its power, because I have to identify with anything in order for it to be sustained. But if I can stand here and look at it, and I can see, and not I have ADHD, but my mind has been programmed by what is called ADHD, which really means it has a hard time focusing attention. And then a practice of focusing attention, which meditation is, bringing attention away from the things it normally is gravitates towards, is the perfect antidote for it. But even ADHD or ADD, remember, these are just labels to describe something underneath. Never say I've got ADHD or they have ADHD. Everybody is just too subtle and too nuanced to be just lumped into a category. And the moment you say that, we tend to take on the symptoms. Don't do that. Just, what is it referring to? Well, it's referring to an incapacity for your attention to be fixed anywhere, except for extremely short periods of time. If I can see it, right, and not identify with it, I can eventually become free of it. How's that, Emma? Georgia B. Thanks for that question, Ein, and for the answer, GP. Struggling with my thoughts is one of my major challenges. I get annoyed or resist my thoughts about my thoughts. Right. That's right. I have this thought, then I hate myself for having that thought, then I hate myself for hating myself for having that thought. You can see it's endless, right? You're not your thoughts. Okay? Okay? You're not your thoughts. Right? Let that sink in. You're the witness of your thoughts. And the pattern the thoughts take is completely a result of conditioning. Stop fighting them. Stop trying to fix them. And just sit back and watch them. Right? That removal of your resistance to it, right, takes all the energy out of it. And even I get annoyed and resist my thought is a thought, isn't it? Right? It goes so subtle, and you become so adept at this stuff. You go, this whole thing is hysterical, right? And all simply because I've identified with my thoughts. I'm not my thoughts. And now I can just see them as these conditioned patterns. And if I can see them as the conditioned patterns and not myself, I have total power over them. I can change them. I can do whatever I want with them. But the most important thing is to simply, you don't need to do anything, actually. The place of seeing is itself so powerful that it's all you need. So I'm speeding up a little bit because I really like to try to get through all the questions. Kuljit, thank you, beautiful. You're welcome. Oh, for a moment there I called you thank you, beautiful. It was me calling me beautiful. Haven't heard that in a long time. Kuljit, I don't attach to it. I enjoy the experience while it's there. Thank you. Yes. Yes, that's it. Because everything comes and goes, right? You can't hold on to anything, and suffering comes from trying to make permanent that which is impermanent, which you can't do. Therefore, you're trying to do something that's impossible. You're seeking something that doesn't exist, and that's suffering. Let it go. Enjoy it in the moment, and realize that if there wasn't this absolute peaceful place that wasn't a high or a low, you could not enjoy it. It has to be received in the place of emptiness, and then it's bliss. Pure Ananda. GP, JL, Portland, Oregon. You just unraveled one psychological unraveled one psychological and spiritual knots that we get so damn stuck on. Love you, man. Thank you. Yes. Yes. We if you see it at the essence, which is what wisdom does, right? Right. It unravels all of these knots that get formed by us taking a position. Thank you, John. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Andre says, thank you. John Sheehan, Rupert Spiro says, knowing, only knowing. Knowing, only knowing. Yes, that's oneness, right? That's true non-duality. And I totally agree with Rupert. He's one of the handful of teachers that I do recommend. They say, yes, listen to him. He's also one who gets the twofold task thing. Andre, I was watching a movie, and for the first time I realized I am doing the animation. Yes. Oh, brilliant. Oh, you're just having one insight after another, aren't you? I'm doing the animation, so to speak. I'm giving life to the character. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Without your right? What's a movie if you don't get into it, right? What does getting into it means? I don't identify with it. It has no meaning. I'm not in the story, right? It's boring. It's completely uninteresting. It's like yet another rerun of Reds, right? One of the most boring movies of all time. Right? So yeah, you're the animator. It's all you. Fantastic, isn't it? Yes, in the real world it is more. Yet in the real world it is more difficult. Stop thinking that thought, right? Don't call that thought into existence. No, it's not. That's just a thought, right? There is no difference, right? So don't entertain the thoughts that say, "Oh, this is really difficult." It's just the mind trying to perpetuate itself, right? You are the self already. You hold all the cards, dude. Bonnie said, "Yes, thank you so much. You're very welcome, Bonnie." Jandiala, is that how you say it? Name? It's a beautiful name. Jandiala. Yeah, I think that's how you say it. Hen S. Hello, Hen. GP. Sometimes I'm worried about not recognizing hidden ego aspects of myself with which I'm putting the world under an unhelpful pressure. How can I recognize them? Be aware of a pressure feeling? Well, first off, take the pressure off you. Oh, you're agonizing over hidden ego aspects of yourself, right? That's a thought. You're creating now the belief in hidden aspects that are getting you. Your belief is doing it. There aren't any hidden aspects. You get that? Right? If you believe there are, you're going to experience them as if they are. But there aren't any. There are no hidden aspects of the ego. Right? Just put it in terms of consciousness becoming more conscious of itself, doing what it was destined to do, you are destined to do, which is realize what is you and what isn't. That's all. There's no hidden aspects. The ego isn't this little, this little ugly curmudgeon-y, gargoyle-looking thing hiding in the bushes waiting to get you, right? Doesn't exist. The ego does not exist, right? It's just patterns of thought. So don't make a devil, right? The hidden ego, the unconscious, it's going to grab me. Oh God, what am I going to do? Right? Oh, don't have that thought. Don't have that thought. Don't have that thought. You can see you're creating. It doesn't exist. There are no hidden aspects. So you don't need to believe in them. Stay in this moment, just here and now. Whatever comes up in this moment. It didn't come from someplace. It spontaneously appeared. And in this moment, what comes up reveals about itself everything you need to know. Right? You're free. You're free, dear friend. You're free. That's a subtle one. I believe in the hidden aspects, so I experience them as hidden aspects. There aren't any. Your belief creates it. It's so subtle and it's mind blowing. You should get it. Thanks for your answer, GP, says Golson. You're welcome. Himok, thank you. Yeah, I've been pretty doubtful of having this condition myself ever since I got diagnosed with it. Right. Not a conspiracy theorist, but this seems like make believe. and I'm not taking any mess that affects my sexual health. Bug pharma be damned. Big pharma be damned. Bug pharma too. Yeah. Uh, yes. Yes. And unfortunately, in these days, because of greed, there's a concerted effort to make you sick. And that's sick, right? But that's what greed does. That's what it does. It's consumed by itself. It's consumed by its own interest. Meds, yeah, I knew you were talking about meds. Totally got it, right? And the conspiracy theories are right in a sense, right? Except not quite, because the conspiracy theories want to find some devil, some group, an Illuminati, or the reptilian aliens, right? Anything except the actual culprit, which is the greed that lives in the ego of the human being. The three poisons: ignorance, delusion, and greed. You don't need a snake person from another planet for that. And so the conspiracy theories are looking for someone to blame, like the Christians have the devil, right? So we have aliens, all sorts of different things, and also to save us, right? So QAnon, right, it turns somebody into a savior, the one that's going to set us all free, right? It is missing the point, right? It is not someone. It is the most hidden aspects of the human ego. That's the true devil. It is operating completely unseen because the ego cannot smell its own breath. Was it Ramana? Ramana used the example of the thief hired by the police to catch the thief. Walking around all day in his uniform. Is he going to find him? Mm-mm. Hen says, simple and beautiful. Got it. Thank you, GP. Wonderful. Excellent. John, many thanks, GP, and night from the Emerald Isle. Aye. Good night, my friend. So good to see you again. All right. The queue is empty. We have less than 2 minutes. The 2-minute warning has sounded for you American football fans. It's a good time for me to say good day, namaste, and wondrous. Thank you for the beautiful questions. I remember 3 years ago when I started doing satsang, the questions weren't nearly as deep, right? They were, I was still getting a lot of domestic questions and how do I manifest a car and things like that, which is great. But it's so good to see how satsang has been leavening consciousness, and the questions are like really, really pointed, and the breakthroughs I'm seeing people have, the insights. It's just exquisite. Right? The awakening isn't a moment in time. It is a universal theme expressing itself constantly in every moment. You're already awake. I love you all. Namaste.